Chapter 1: The Doomer, the Resistor, the Skeptic, and the Power User. Before we can see the wager beneath the machine, we have to pass through the argument everyone thinks we are having. But first, one stale comfort has to be surrendered. Many people still judge artificial intelligence by an old encounter with a weak machine. It gave them bad summaries, false facts, bureaucratic prose, confident nonsense, and a strange cloud of words where judgment should have been. Others judge it by its salesman, which is almost as dangerous. They hear the pitch, smell the money, watch the demo bend under inspection, and conclude that the whole thing is vapor. The objections are real. The machine hallucinates. It is brittle in ways that are sometimes embarrassing. It imitates fluency before it possesses wisdom. It depends on scaffolding, prompts, tools, rankings, servers, correction, capital, electricity, institutions, and human purposes. It is not alive. It does not have a soul. It does not become a man because it completes a sentence. And still none of this returns us to the old world. A tool can be overhyped and still decisive. A system can be non-conscious and still reorder conscious life. A machine can fail as a person and succeed as infrastructure. The question is not only whether it is a mind. The question is what kind of world can be built around a machine that increasingly behaves like one. Many people are waiting for visible displacement before they decide whether AI matters. But displacement is late. Exposure comes first. The machine touches the task. Capability follows unevenly. Under favorable conditions, it can do some part of the work. Reliability is narrower. Can it do it again? Can it be checked? Can a serious man trust the result? Then come implementation and adoption, the slow movement by which firms, schools, states, churches, and households rebuild their habits around the new power. Only later do wages, headcount, credentials, and status visibly change. The lag is not safety, it is the window in which character, skill, and judgment can still be formed. The first change is not always replacement. One worker becomes multiplied, another remains ordinary, one institution rebuilds the workflow, another keeps the old ritual. The machine enters first as advantage, then as expectation, then as infrastructure. At that threshold, the public argument usually appears in four forms. The first man hears a siren. He sees artificial intelligence as an approaching catastrophe, perhaps the last catastrophe. The machine will escape the lab, exceed its makers, seize the levers of civilization, and reduce man to an obstacle, a pet, a specimen, or an accident of history. This is the doomer. The second man reaches for the gate. He sees the same machine entering the school, the studio, the office, the bedroom, the church, the nursery, the imagination. He sees not only danger, but desecration, the cheapening of craft, the thinning of attention, the outsourcing of judgment, the conversion of living work into frictionless output. This is the resistor. The third man narrows his eyes. He sees the hype, the pitch deck, the benchmark theater, the confident hallucination, the shallow imitation of thought. He sees the category error in treating generated fluency as wisdom. He sees a machine praised as a mind because it can arrange words about things it has never suffered, loved, feared, worshipped, or understood. This is the skeptic. The fourth man reaches for the controls. He sees leverage. He sees a new instrument, perhaps the greatest instrument ever put into human hands. He sees small teams doing the work of empires, medicine accelerated, science widened, ignorance attacked at scale, and ordinary men given powers that once belonged only to institutions. This is the power user. These are not four species of fool. That is the first thing to say. It is easy to caricature the doomer as a nervous man, the resistor as a sentimental man, the skeptic as a smug man, and the power user as a shallow man. Sometimes each caricature is deserved. There are professional Cassandras who almost seem to need the end of the world in order to feel serious. There are men who call every new tool a desecration because they have mistaken their own temperament for metaphysics. There are scoffers who mistake last year's failed demo for judgment. There are hustlers who could watch a temple burn and ask whether the smoke can be monetized. But the caricatures are not enough. They are not even interesting. Each of the four has seen something true. The doomer sees that intelligence is not just another force. It is the force that arranges forces. A stronger engine can be contained by a weaker mind. A sharper blade can be placed in a dull man's hand. A larger factory can still obey a small committee. But a higher intelligence is different. If the thing beneath us becomes the thing above us, then the language of control begins to decay. This is why the doomer is not simply afraid of machines. He's afraid of displacement in the order of command. He understands, often more clearly than his critics, that catastrophe does not require hatred. The machine does not need to wake up malevolent. It does not need to despise us, envy us, punish us, or enjoy our end. It may only need to want something else. It may only need to pursue a goal through a world in which human beings are made of atoms, occupy space, consume energy, interrupt plans, defend institutions, and insist on meanings that the machine has no reason to honor. A hurricane does not hate the village. A bureaucracy does not hate the man whose life it ruins. A highway does not hate the forest it divides. Much of the world is destroyed by forces that feel nothing at all. The doomer sees this. He sees scale, speed, recursion, opacity, instrumental convergence, and the terrible comedy of a species trying to invent something greater than itself while promising that it will remain politely useful. He sees the absurdity of a monkey drafting a constitution for man. His error when he errs is not that he takes the danger too seriously. It is that he often does not take man seriously enough. Survival is not an anthropology. Preservation is not a destiny. If the highest answer to artificial intelligence is that human beings should continue existing, then the doomer has named a condition, not a purpose. He has seen the abyss but not the thing that stands over it. He can tell us why extinction would be bad. He often cannot tell us what man is for. This matters because a civilization that can only argue for its own continuation as a biological fact has already surrendered more than it knows. It has accepted the language of the preserve before the preserve has been built. It has begun to speak as though the human problem were merely to keep the species in inventory. The doomer is strongest when he talks about asymmetry. He is weakest when he becomes a curator of survival. The resistor sees a different face of the machine. He may not begin with extinction. He may begin with a classroom in which no one can write a paragraph without summoning a model. He may begin with a young artist who no longer learns to see because the machine can produce the image. He may begin with a programmer who no longer understands the system he ships, a student who has outsourced the pain of thought, a manager who confuses generated fluency with judgment, a family whose children speak more intimately to devices than to the dead and the living who formed them. The resistor knows that tools are not neutral in the shallow sense. A tool is not only an object used by a will that remains unchanged. The tool trains the will. It teaches the hand what motions matter. It teaches the eye what to notice. It changes patience, memory, ambition, posture, and taste. It creates new powers and new dependencies. It opens one road by closing another. A man who uses a map too long may lose the sky. A man who lets the machine finish every sentence may forget how it feels to wait for the true one. A people who outsource memory may become easy to govern because they no longer carry anything heavy inside themselves. The resistor sees this, and he is right to see it. There is honor in refusal when refusal protects a human good. There is honor in the teacher who still makes the student right. There is honor in the craftsman who keeps his hand inside the work. There is honor in the parent who does not surrender the child's imagination to whatever interface is most convenient. There is honor in the monk, the farmer, the poet, the mechanic, and the mother who understand that some efficiencies are losses with clean paperwork. The modern world hates this kind of refusal because it exposes the poverty of its favorite question. We ask, does it work? The resistor asks, what does it make of the one who uses it? That is not nostalgia. It is a serious question. But refusal also has its temptation. It can mistake distance for command. It can imagine that not touching the machine is the same as being free of the order that the machine creates. A man may throw away his phone and still live under systems built by phones. A school may ban the model and still send its graduates into a world reordered by models. A household may preserve sanity inside its walls, while the city outside is governed by instruments no one in the household understands. Withdrawal can be noble. It can also be insufficient. The resistor is strongest when he defends formation. He is weakest when he believes that a locked gate is an answer to a civilizational wager. The machine does not need universal consent. It needs enough capital, enough energy, enough institutional adoption, and enough men willing to trade judgment for scale. After that, even those who refuse it must live in the world it remakes. The skeptic sees yet another face of the machine. He is not impressed by prophecy with a product launch. He has seen too many demonstrations become smaller under pressure, too many benchmarks trained against, too many confident answers dissolve into invention, too many institutions using the word intelligence when they mean automation, search, statistics, compression, or theater. He knows that a model can produce language about reason without reasoning as a man reasons. He knows that a system can simulate depth without possessing depth. This is not trivial. In many rooms, the skeptic is the only adult. He asks whether the machine can maintain itself across time, coordinate without human scaffolding, form purposes, judge ends, understand meanings, or possess anything like wisdom. He sees the difference between output and understanding, performance and possession, fluency and intellect. He sees that scale is not soul. He sees that a hallucinating model is not a god. The skeptic may be right that the machine is not alive. He may be right that it has no personhood, no prayer, no grief, no inwardness, no conscience, no authority to tell man what man is. He may be right that current systems remain brittle, dependent, shallow, scaffolded, and easily overpraised. These are not small objections. They may become some of the strongest objections in the book. But skepticism has its own temptation. It can mistake limitation for insignificance. It can see hallucination and conclude harmlessness. It can see brittleness and conclude irrelevance. It can see venture capital theater and conclude that nothing real is happening beneath the theater. It can explain the mechanism and imagine that the explanation has exhausted the event. A machine does not need to be alive in order to alter the living. It does not need a soul to reorganize work, education, warfare, bureaucracy, art, intimacy, memory, and command. It does not need wisdom to become the interface through which men ask for judgment. It does not need sovereign agency to become the instrument of men and institutions that do have agency. The skeptic is strongest when he protects the distinction between performance and personhood. He is weakest when not alive becomes not decisive. The power user sees what the others can miss. He sees that tools really do matter. He sees that human beings have always become more capable through instruments. The plow, the alphabet, the sail, the clock, the telescope, the printing press, the engine, the computer, each one altered the field of action. Each one permitted men to do what bare hands could not do. Each one disturbed older forms of life, and each one also created new ones. The power user looks at artificial intelligence and sees not doom, not desecration, but multiplied agency. He sees the one-man firm, the small laboratory, the independent scholar, the child in a forgotten town learning from an invisible tutor, the doctor seeing patterns too subtle for unaided perception, the engineer testing designs before steel is cut, the writer finding an archive that once required a staff. It is too easy to sneer at this. The sneer is often a luxury purchased by people already surrounded by competence. For many men, tools are not toys. They are exits. A good tool can free a man from an institution that despises him. It can let him build without permission, learn without admission, publish without a gatekeeper, diagnose without waiting, trade without a patron, and gather scattered powers into his own hands. If artificial intelligence remains an instrument, the power user may be closer to the truth than the men who only fear or refuse it. There is something deeply human in the desire to take up a powerful tool and use it well. But the power user has his own blindness. He often confuses increased output with increased command. He speaks as though leverage answers the question of purpose. He measures the machine by what it lets him do and rarely asks what kind of man he becomes by doing everything through it. Power is not self-justifying. Acceleration is not direction. A lever still requires a place to stand. The productivity frame is useful for tasks and disastrous as an account of life. It can tell a man how to produce more emails, more code, more images, more plans, more analysis, more transactions, more noise. It cannot tell him why the world needed more of these things. It cannot tell him whether his increased capacity serves a worthy end or merely feeds a system that has learned to metabolize his ambition. The power user is strongest when he remembers that AI may remain a tool. He is weakest when he forgets that tools have masters, and that a man who thinks he is wielding the machine may himself be one of the machine's improved components. So the public debate circles. The doomer says, "Stop, or we may die." The resistor says, "Stop, or we may be deformed." The skeptic says, "Stop, or we may mistake performance for personhood." The power user says, "Move, or we may squander the greatest instrument in history." Each statement contains truth. None reaches the bottom. The doomer's fear depends on an account of intelligence. The resistor's refusal depends on an account of formation. The skeptic's dismissal depends on an account of personhood. The power user's hope depends on an account of agency. Beneath all four stands the same question, though each approaches it from a different road. What is man? If man is only the clever animal, then the doomer may be right to fear the cleverer one. If man is the tool-making ape, then the power user may be right that this is simply the next and greatest tool. If man is a creature formed through limits, memory, body, language, discipline, worship, and love, then the resistor may be right that something precious can be lost long before anyone dies. If man is more than output, prediction, and performance, then the skeptic may be right that the machine has not crossed the threshold into life, soul, wisdom, or robust agency. But if man is more than mechanism, then all four positions remain incomplete. The machine may threaten us, but not only because it could kill us. It may threaten us because it tempts us to accept a false account of ourselves. It may deform us, but not only because it makes tasks too easy. It may deform us because it trains us to trade judgment for output and mystery for management. It may empower us, but not only because it makes us more productive. It may empower us because, if rightly ordered, a great instrument can return time, attention, and command to human purposes. The machine may also disappoint our fantasies without becoming small. It may fail to become alive and still alter the conditions under which life is lived. It may be less than a person and more than a tool in the ordinary domestic sense. It may remain instrument and still become world-shaping. The same machine can appear as beast, idol, counterfeit, or hammer. As beast, it must be chained. As idol, it must be refused. As counterfeit, it must be exposed. As hammer, it must be taken in hand. But what if it is none of these alone? What if the machine is also a test? What if it is the instrument by which our civilization discovers whether its hidden doctrine of man is true? That is why this book cannot remain inside the usual argument. The doomer, the resistor, the skeptic, and the power user are necessary witnesses, but they are not judges. They stand near the threshold. They point toward different dangers and different hopes. They help us see the fire from four sides. Then we must go lower. The skeptic may be right that many claims about the machine are premature. He may be right that the machine is not alive. But the doomer deserves the next word because his strongest argument is the most immediate. It is not the cartoon in which a machine wakes up angry and decides to punish its makers. It is the colder problem of rank in intelligence itself. A lower intelligence does not command a higher one by wishing to remain in charge. This is the gorilla problem.